Hello everyone, my name is Matthias, and this is a video about how one single Frank Ocean lyric started sounding more like a business model. But before we head into it, a bit more context is necessary. I showed you guys my portfolio in my previous video, and as you guys can see, HIMS and Hers is my smallest position. But I do believe that this company could grow into one of the biggest holdings in my portfolio. And this is due to one single basic understanding of the value proposition this company proposes to its investors and also to its customers. So the Frank Ocean lyric that really started giving me this whole idea and this new insight in terms of HIMS and Hers labs is this.
Tech company, please give me immortality. I'm going rapidly, fading drastically. Yeah.
The human condition is an ensemble of processes, a medley of experiences we all share, with the most disturbing and sadly the most common one being a constant state of decay. Going rapidly and fading drastically is perhaps the only experience all biological beings share. By way of bad decision making, this process can be accelerated. Some of the time, treatment kicks in when it's too late. Diagnosis is not driven by preventative initiatives, but by identification and treatment of already viral illnesses. But what if this process was turned on its head? What if it were possible to identify a disease or an illness or other symptoms of human health fading drastically, as Frank Ocean said, before they kick in? What if slowing the process of decay became a service? What if achieving a longer, healthier, and higher quality lifespan became a purchasable service? When Frank Ocean released Blonde in 2016, I did not think too much of this lyric. I was 18 years old, perhaps in the prime of my life physically. My energy levels were in another stratosphere, and I had other things to worry about than mortality, health, and investing in technology companies. Now, at the ripe age of 27, I feel like my stamina has decreased to a certain level. My energy levels have done the same. In other words, I'm experiencing what Frank Ocean described in Futura Free in real time, knowing that it's all downhill from here, pun intended. So, this whole idea of going rapidly and fading drastically is just one condition that we all have in common. When he starts this song by saying, "Tech company, please give me immortality," this whole idea and this concept never really hit home to me. Fast forward to 2025, HIMS and Hers released the Lab service. This allows its subscribers to get a snapshot of their health and giving them the power to change it. Basically, they can take your health data, analyze it on their platform, and find out whether you are lacking in XYZ and addressing it through their compounded medicine, personalizing the dosage, and mixing chemicals in order to address your health, allowing you and your loved ones to get ahead of any health issues. Going into their Q3 earnings call transcript, I see a lot of interesting quotes, and I'll just quote Andrew Dudum, the CEO here. Historically, people have come to us to manage existing conditions. Soon, we'll help them take a more proactive role in managing their health, and in doing so, can potentially impact millions of lives. Our goal is to one day help identify and manage risks associated with heart disease, metabolic disorders, neurodegenerative diseases, and cancer long before symptoms appear. What this does is basically HIMS and Hers transforming the way medicine is provided. You see, historically, medicine has been more a case of addressing existing issues instead of a proactive look at what could become an issue. When Frank Ocean said, "Tech company, please give me immortality," this is what I mean. Obviously, I am aware that immortality is an unachievable ideal for human beings and for biological beings. I am aware. But addressing some issues that allows for longer lifespans and allows for longer lives with healthier health seems to me like an amazing value proposition. And I also am aware that HIMS and Hers is not the only and first company to deliver lab testing to customers. But what I do think they could do is take this and democratize it. What I do think they could do is provide this service and offer it at scale. HIMS and HERS has the network of proprietary compounding infrastructure in order to bring this solution to the masses, doing so for a lower price than competitors through their vertically integrated structure. As CEO Andrew Dudum says, we have the provider network and compounding infrastructure in place to take action against those insights. And we have a strengthening data feedback loop that can help measure, adapt, and refine care at scale. He also does say that they'll be bringing it to the market for an absolute fraction of that cost. Hims and Hers is a company that has historically proven a willingness and an ability to lower prices over time. And now I'll just show you two examples from previous earnings call transcripts that prove this. They actually do walk the walk. They don't just talk, they actually do lower prices. This willingness of lowering prices over time goes way, way back. It is a part of the company's DNA. As CEO Andrew Durham said in 2023, as part of this mission and our ambitions to reach as many people as possible, we're excited to share that in the past few months, we've begun to systematically lower prices for many of our longer duration offerings to make our more personalized subscription even more mass market accessible. Also, later he did say in Q4 2023, he said, over 85% of orders going through affiliated pharmacies provide us greater ability to realize the benefits of scale and ultimately pass value back to consumers in a way that is beneficial for us users and accretive to Hims and Hers. Being able to provide this and entering this market for a fraction of that cost is actually doable, and they can provide this and they can actually achieve this because of their scale, because of their data moat, and because of their vertically integrated structure. Every part of this value chain, it is very similar to the United Health Group situation where they have a vertically integrated structure where you don't have to leave this ecosystem. You can be diagnosed by a Hims and Hers doctor who then gives you and provides you the medicine through a Hims and Hers pharmacy, and then you can get this dosage personalized with Hims and Hers on the app. Everything happens on the platform. Everything is vertically integrated. This allows them to be more cost efficient. This allows them to lower their prices over time. As I mentioned, this really does reinforce this idea of this flywheel, which then in turn allows them to return those cost savings back to their customers because they do have this lower price and this way better value proposition with personalized care and personalized dosages where they take your data and analyze it on a cheaper platform, which then increases their scale and efficiency, in turn lowering the costs per dollar of their revenue. This, in basic terms, this means that their platform and their vertically integrated structure, lower prices, allows them to provide care cheaper for their customers, which then allows them to provide more savings for their customers, which then reinforces this flywheel, which allows them to scale further. So basically, HIMS is planning to offer proactive care, standing at a stark contrast to the acute care they, incumbents, and generally the health sector has offered previously. I think this approach, with HIMS further assuming their counter-positioning mode, will offer immense value for customers. Re-listening to the album after having heard the Q3 2025 earnings call where Andrew Dudum presented this idea of labs, really made me think of Futura Free in a completely different way. Especially the tech company Please Give Me Immortality line. I really don't know what it is about that line, but before hearing about the lab's offering, I never really gave it much thought. I never really pondered immortality as a service. I'm not sure about immortality, as I mentioned, as an achievable human ideal, but I sure do think we can at least provide longer lifespans and achieve longer lifespans drastically through this service, through preventative care, through personalization, and through digitalization of healthcare driven by data analysis. HIMS has certainly come a long way from being a boner pill company. Even they're creating immense value for their customers, addressing other universal existential longings and providing solutions for those needs. You see, HIMS and hers, even though they do provide this extremely long-term value creation of longer lifespans through data analysis and precision medicine, they also address other kinds of human needs, which made me think of this Frank Ocean lyric.
If I was being honest, I say long as I can fuck 3 times a day and not skip a meal, I'm good.
All these needs are universal. Combining this with the prospects of prolonging lifespan, I think Hims and Hers offers an interesting value proposition. All these needs are universal and shared by all human beings. We're all in a constant state of decay, but we also have these lower level needs, as Frank Ocean says. And I sure do want to live longer, just saying it bluntly, while having a good time with better health. And I think addressing those needs is enough of a value proposition to at least give him some thought and some research for you guys. It should be said, obviously, that none of this is investment advice. Neither is this health advice. I'm not a financial advisor, and I am in no way a health or medical professional. I do not take responsibility for your actions. You should consult a professional. Now, obviously, all this qualitative material is incredibly in favor of hims and hers. If they can just scratch the surface of providing longer health spans, increasing lifetime, at least this is a very, very valuable service to me. Doing a reverse discounted cash flow analysis of HIMS also says that it is a company that is relatively cheap. At 15% compounded growth rate on their free cash flow for the next 10 years doesn't seem like a tall task to me, especially with the ability that they've had to scale their revenues, their users, and their free cash flow over time. But obviously, and of course, it should be said that this free cash flow is not one to one equal to what would be their owner earnings. You see, in this 10K report that they provided last year, it said that their free cash flow is a $198 million. But this does not take into account their stock based compensation. This does not take into account their earnings on their cash position. So obviously, the free cash flow is distributable cash, but they've chosen to give this to their employees through stock based compensation. I have no issue with this, but the $198 million is not a representative idea of what their owner earnings are. This is misleading, and you should not do reverse discounted cash flows, in my opinion, with these numbers because they are in some certain kind of way misleading. Obviously, they could stop doing these stock based compensations, they could stop diluting shares and such. And I think this provides another kind of long term value for shareholders. Creating more alignment between the employees and stock owners really isn't a bad thing, but it does mean that there's some kind of discrepancy between their free cash flow and their actual owner earnings that could be passed back to you. So, Hims and Hers doing this sort of reverse discounted cash flow is yet another example, similar to Amazon, where you just kind of look dumb doing a reverse discounted cash flow and justifying your purchase of the company through these means. What you should do, similarly to Amazon, is deciding whether their usage of their operating cash flow, if they can provide more value with their operating cash flow to you as an investor over time. How well do they spend their money? What we see here is their operating income, their operating cash flow. And what we can basically see is that they've had the ability to scale this and accelerate this in an incredible rate. What the question is whether they provide more value for shareholders through providing more value for users with this money. This is a very young company. You shouldn't expect returns. Like, you shouldn't expect them to buy back shares. You shouldn't expect them to give you a dividend. You should expect them to plow every dollar they own back into the company, strengthening their vertical integration networks, strengthening their compounding infrastructure, strengthening all these things in order to create long-term value for you, in order to create long-term value for their customers. Now, as I mentioned, the thing that creates value for you as an investor is Hims and Hers' ability to solve issues and create better customer health outcomes at scale. Hims and Hers has the structural ability to onboard and distribute new verticals, and doing so at scale, addressing a vast array of needs. Everything from increasing your lifespan to allowing you to indulge in other human existential behaviors. Hims and Hers is not just a GLP-1 company. Hims and Hers is not just a boner company, it's not a hair loss company, and it's not a pharmacy company. Hims and Hers is a vertically integrated alternative to the traditional insurance-based business model that these companies usually have rested on. Hims and Hers owns the proprietary provider networks. They own the compounding infrastructure while also owning the data feedback loop. This allows them to analyze data at scale and optimizing user health outcomes. They got here by cornering the market by assuming counter positioning, targeting and focusing on these very stigmatized issues such as erectile dysfunction, hair loss, and so on, thus onboarding and expanding their product offerings and creating and building trust with their customer base in the meantime. Cornering this very sort of stigmatized area of the market really does, in other words, allow them to erode friction at scale. What this means is that going to the doctor traditionally, saying that you have issues with erectile dysfunction, saying that you have issues with hair loss, saying that you have all these issues, is a high friction task. It involves a lot of vulnerability, not necessarily something you would like to talk to a doctor to. What Hims and Hers does is offering a fully digital way of tackling this problem. As I mentioned, they own the provider networks, the compounding infrastructure, and the data feedback loop, allowing them to spin their flywheel of scale economies return faster. Over half of Hims and Hers subscriber base is on a personalized care plan. What this means is that Hims and Hers has a very big data set of customers and their health outcomes. So, in turn, what this then allows them to do is make better precision medicine, provide better precision care, leading to better health outcomes, causing more happiness, creating this feedback, creating this flywheel effect of onboarding more customers, serving them better, creating better health outcomes, which increases customers' happiness, which then increases Hims and Hers scale, which, as we saw earlier, allows them to lower their prices, further strengthening this loop. The reason why I bought Hims and Hers is what we talked about. I saw a huge data centric powerhouse in the making. I saw a company that could provide healthcare, eroding friction by assuming counter positioning, thus creating an interesting value proposition for their customers, eroding this friction, as I've said a lot of times. Now, after hearing Futura Free again and learning about the lab's offering, this really did fundamentally change my view of the company. And it made me really realize how scalable this business model could actually be. If you know exactly what a potential customer lacks or has of issues, then you can provide a personalized care plan at a cheap price to enhance their life quality. So now, when I hear of immortality as a service, I no longer think of science fiction. When I listen to Futura Free and hear Frank Ocean saying, "Tech company, please give me immortality," I no longer think that this is something way out in the future. Now, as I've said, I know that immortality is unachievable, but I certainly do think that providing a longer lifespan for customers, increasing their health, is a huge value proposition. Now I hear preventative care. I hear lifetime expansion through data, personalization, and early intervention, proactive care. This is a very interesting thing, and this has fundamentally changed my entire Hims and Hers thesis. Going from this company being a friction eroder at scale to a company that actually could end up increasing lifespans. And this is an incredibly appealing value proposition to me. It is my smallest position, but I really do see my smallest position growing by quite a lot due to these factors. That's been it for me today, guys. I hope you appreciated this video. I hope you learned something, and I'll see you next time.